Good evening. I came down in the garage here Sunday night. I just had a little bit of a sharpening session. I sharpened up my number four, my number five plane, um, and a couple pocket knives and a chisel. I got the planes really razor sharp. I concentrated on them a lot. But I buy, whenever I see a vintage box, if I'm somewhere and they're selling it, obviously, I usually buy them. This one here, it's a Lufkin roll company from Saginaw, Michigan. Here you see box that I found at a probably a flea market or antique store or whatever, and I saw it sitting on my shelf and it was a little dusty, so I just wanted to wipe it off, and I found in it here this this Dunlap saw joiner, which again, once again, is another one of those tools that I obviously knew that I had it because I put it in this box at some point, but when and where I got it, I have no idea. But the funny thing is, it's one of those, you know, I've talked about this in other videos. You're a woodworker, you're a DIY type guy or lady, and people find out and they want to, and they basically will give you. You could. I never used to believe this, but you could probably build an entire toolkit from the cast-offs that people want to get rid of. And somebody gave me this guy for whatever reasons. You can see here there's a file on it and this little slit there. You put it over your saw, you tighten it down, and you use it to joint the teeth to a uniform edge. This saw here is just another saw that somebody gave to me, Lord knows when, that I cleaned up and sharpened, but I did not use that. If I remember right, I didn't have to joint the saw, but I certainly didn't use this tool on it. But yeah, if you're like me and you have people who give you tools all the time, almost subconsciously, and it's one of those things where you take them almost subconsciously, look around, look in your toolboxes, your drawers. Who knows what you're going to find in there? And just in the past week, I found that the Norton sharpening India stone for sharpening gouges, and now this saw joiner. Now I'll be the first person to tell you, I don't sharpen saws very often. I have done it. I learned how to do it just for the sake of learning, and I think the most important thing was learning how to sharpen a rip saw, because the main reason I use saws in the broad sense is for sawing joints, and that is, most joinery saws are rip saws. They're filed rip. Some people, you can certainly file a saw cross that will work ripping joints, as people do it all the time. There's nothing wrong with it. But the way I look at it, I suppose the reasoning being you can use a saw for more than one task. You can use it for cross-cutting, ripping, which is fine. There is an argument to be made that having your tenon saw or your any back saw that you're using to saw joints with, you'd prefer to have it filed in a cross-cut pattern, because when you're sawing the shoulder of a tenon, say, you want that to be a nice, really clean, smooth cut, where a rip saw isn't necessarily going to give you that really fine edge. But for the most part, I have two saws. I use a crosscut saw and a rip saw. Well, back saws that are filed for each. That being said, I don't make enough. Like the amount of times you use a saw for joinery, or it's not like you're really putting a heavy toll on them. The rip saws to me take a much more of a beating, which is why I was really concerned with learning how to sharpen my dovetail saws, because those are the saws I use the most, even if I'm not necessarily sawing a dovetail. And I really want to be able to get those guys filed and sharp, always ready to go. So that's why I use them. That's why I learned how to sharpen them. I mean, and I'm pretty good at it. I'm not going to tell you I'm great at it. Where my issue is, and this is something that you just really need to learn from experience, is learning how to set the saws. Here I have my main dovetail saw is this the Lee Nelson. That has not needed to be set yet, as of yet. I've only had it for a few years, and I have sharpened it. I think I sharpened it one time, if I remember correctly, but I have sharpened it before for certain, and it does a really nice job. But setting a saw is a little bit trickier, especially a crosscut saw. A rip saw can be they're both a little tough, but crosscut saws, fine-tooth crosscut saws are really tough to set, in my opinion. I just don't have the experience at it, and that's one of those things where you really need to do it every day, day in, day out, to get good at it. It's like playing a guitar or a piano. You're not going to be really skilled at it unless you do it 30-40 minutes a day. And that's my problem. That's where I have a bit of an issue with saw sharpening. But as I said, the work I do now, I don't really use saws heavily, except for small joints. So I think rather than put this back in this box, I'm going to put it somewhere where I know where I know where it is, where it's not going to be out of sight, out of mind. But yeah, and if you're like me, you've probably had somebody give you tools before. I'm sure you have. And if you're like me, you probably forgot that you received them. So look around. Who knows what you're going to find? It's like a little treasure trove back here. And I think maybe tomorrow after work, I'm going to do a little bit more digging in my bins and see what I turn up. So I hope you guys have a good night. Thanks for watching, and take care.